So our next speaker is all the way from the Netherlands, and we're so thrilled to have Lissy Smit here. She's the CEO of Aqua-Spark, which is the largest and first dedicated aquaculture venture capital firm. And they are doing really cool stuff all over the world. And we're so thrilled to have Lissy come all the way from Netherlands here to enlighten us in what Aqua-Spark is up to these days. Lissy has over 2 decades of banking experience with Rabobank, primarily in food and agribusiness, and she joined Aqua-Spark as the CEO in 2022 because of her belief in their huge potential to develop our future food systems. Lissy Smit, thank you. Here's your advance, and that's a pointer.
Okay, great. Sorry, just the pointer.
Down here, you have a monitor.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great. Hi, it's really great to be here. Thank you for having me, Jim. It was a bit of a flight, but it was worth it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the world of investing in sustainable aquaculture. Before I do that, however, I wanted to show you this. And actually, it already came up this morning twice. Herb addressed it in his very inspiring speech starting off this morning, and then Brian mentioned it as well. But I was very privileged and lucky to be able to visit Nomila Fish Pond yesterday morning. So Dave Anderson, I think who's sitting here in the back, kindly invited me over and showed me how you can actually do the traditional pond farming together with modern technologies. So a lot of what we heard this morning as well, I was able to see in person, and it was incredible. It's a really beautiful, breathtaking space. At the same time, the connection to the ocean is it's very visible. We just walked out there, and if you follow the canal that leads into the ocean, there were actually turtles just lying there, resting there. And this is why we all do it. This is why this is a proof point how you can see you can do aquaculture in a sustainable manner with full respect of nature in a very balanced way. So I just wanted to share that. This was just, for me, this is incredible. Experience, and to see that this is possible. This is what we're all doing it for. So thank you, Dave, for having me, showing me around. Also, actually very special being here is that one of our supervisory board and investment committee members, Lisa Kleisner, lives here, and she was kind enough to show me around the island. So that's already two really good reasons to be here. So back to my story. So what I'm going to do is first share with you my personal story, then tell you a little bit about Aqua-Spark, who we are, what we are, our theories change. I'll take a deep dive into what we think are critical success factors if you take ideas, technologies, and how to scale them, and what makes it investable. And then finally, I'll share with you how can hopefully some of you might be able to join us on our journey. So, I actually want to go back one slide, sorry. I was going to start with my personal journey. So I first learned about Aqua-Spark when I was working at Rabobank. I was sitting on the investment committee, and we were looking at a company named Protix. Not sure if you know Protix, but it's a large black shoulderfly plant based in the Netherlands. It was a joint investment of Rabobank and Aqua-Spark. And what was really interesting is that Aqua-Spark was actually the lead investor, being a much smaller fund compared to this big Rabobank I was working for. And it really opened my eyes as to what they were doing, how they were doing it, and all the challenges and opportunities there are in aquaculture. So within Rabobank, I've worked a lot with companies and farmers building their businesses, and also seeing how difficult it is if farmers have new ideas, new technologies, how to get that financed. So the idea of Aqua-Spark really appealed to me, and I started to learn more about it. So why is it important? Why is it important to invest in sustainable aquaculture? Actually, Aqua-Spark was founded about 10 years ago, started 2013, first funds invested in 2015 by Mike Velings and Amy Novogratz. They truly believe, and so do I, that aquaculture is a real solution to saving our oceans. If we look at our oceans today, and I know many of you, especially in an island community, are aware of this, but it's producing 50% of the world's oxygen. 25% of all carbon dioxide emissions are absorbed by the ocean. And 90% of the heat generated by those emissions gets captured by the ocean. However, the oceans are in trouble, and I think we all know that, seen that, realize that. It's really incredible now to see that so many people around the world are realizing it. It's being picked up by more mainstream media, and we were very thrilled to also see this cover on Time magazine, calling it the most important place on Earth, which we fully agree with. There's 120 million people whose livelihood depend on it, depend on fisheries, depend on aquaculture. So it's really important to get this right. So even though there's more attention for aquaculture and the solution to and the solution it can provide to ocean health, it's still the most underinvested of all the sustainable development goals. So think about that. It's really important that we all find a way to get more investments into the industry. So how do we do it? I think one of the great things is that although there are many challenges in aquaculture, there's also many solutions to them. So every investment that we make from Aqua-Spark, we look at what we call our 11 outcomes. Actually, there are 12, because we're also currently raising a Aqua-Spark Africa fund, which will focus on the livelihoods and food security on the African continent. But our 11 main outcomes is what we really want to see in how we can change the aquacultural industry to make it more sustainable. So I think most of these, and I'm sorry for the small print, but we just wanted to get a lot on this because this is really important to us. So the main things is around how can we reduce the footprint? How can we make sure that we no longer catch wild-caught fish from the sea? Because not everyone realizes this, but a lot of in aquaculture, a lot of the fish actually get fed fish. So it's not really helping to relieve the oceans. So we need to come up with alternatives, like Protex I mentioned before. Reduce pollution, still a lot of issues around pollution in aquaculture. Increased valorization of underutilized resources. There's still a lot of what we produce that we don't use. I know this is across the whole value chain in food, but definitely also the case in aquaculture. Embrace biodiversity. Well, I showed you the pictures of the turtles, making sure that ocean life is respected and the ocean gets the time to restore again and do what it is supposed to be doing. So also very important outcome we like to see. Make it antibiotic-free. Very important. Find alternatives so we don't need to rely on antibiotics anymore. Improve animal welfare. Making sure that we treat animals well. And there's many solutions in that area as well. Very, very important one that we actually quite focused on in our investment strategy today is transparency and traceability. It's still one of the proteins that the consumers don't even ask what it comes from. Half of or a lot of the seafood is actually not traceable right now. So people might know a country, but they won't be traceable to the farm. So there are, again, many, many great solutions to this. We also focus on increasing access to financing for farmers, improving smallholders' positions, profitability, giving them better access to inputs, and making sure that they can also practice sustainable farming. So how do we do it? Our investment strategy focuses on a number of things. Like I mentioned, improving fish health is a really big one. Finding new ways to battle diseases, alternatives to fish meal. This could be anything from insects, microbes, mycelium, algae. Improve farm practices, like I just mentioned. Many ways to do that, and we already heard a couple of examples earlier today and yesterday. Using data to really, well, first of all, to improve production, but also to make sure that we get things to be traceable and that we know where our food is coming from. So, what are we already doing? Where are we now? So for Aqua-Spark, we are an investment fund. We always say we're not experts. We have a focus, but we're not experts. So also, we want to change the whole food system, which is really quite ambitious. So we don't do it alone. We work with a network of experts. We work with a network of policymakers. We focus on making sure we get the story out. And that's, I think, also where hopefully some of you might be able to help and assist and support us, because this is not something that you do alone. So who are the basic actors in our ecosystem? So first of all, and most importantly, there's the innovators. I know there's many of you here today. We heard a lot of great pitches. Just at Heidi from COS. No need to explain your work after your great presentation, but really looking for new ideas that really can change and contribute also to our 11 outcomes. Another one is TAPAC. We heard this morning, just looking around where Lam's sitting, yes, hello, around really tackling the challenges that there are in shrimp production in Vietnam. Being able, with the supply of software and hardware, to really improve farm practices, also allowing farmers to farm more sustainable. Who are other important actors? There's the policymakers, of course. We do a lot of advocacy work as well, making sure that we have the right policies and guidelines in place to ensure that we get to a sustainable aquaculture. It's really important that the likes of the UN, the European Committee set standards and make sure that we clean up the industry to make it more sustainable. Then there's the buyers. So these are the large retailers. They represent the customers. They have a big role in also shifting consumer demand, making sure that consumers are actually aware where the seafood is coming from, that seafood becomes traceable and healthy and produced in a sustainable manner. Then there's the media. We need to get the story out. We need to make sure that we tell people how sustainable aquaculture is done. There's a lot of misconceptions around aquaculture. There's so many changes. There's so many positive stories to it. We need to get that story out as well. So media is also a very important actor in this whole ecosystem. And then, of course, there's the experts and the scientists. People who can research, develop new ideas, taking them further, insights in disease management, projecting climate trends. So we really try to bring people together because we know our role in it is only small, but it's important that if we really want to change the food system, we all need to do that together. So, I was going the wrong way. There we go. So how do we do this? I already shared with you that we're looking across the whole value chain to invest in. But what makes something investable? What makes something interesting for capital to flow into the sector? I think if you look at the first three on this slide, having a great idea, having a great team, and a good strategy. Those three are important for any investor. And I will go into them how we see that and what we think is important in this. But the other two, the last two are the ones that we think that really makes us unique. This is around the alliances and the collaboration, how we work together within our portfolio companies, but also with the other actors in the industry. And then the last one, market and industry adoption. What's our role in that? So let me go to the first point. A great idea. That's where it all starts. So costs, again, Heidi, thank you. That saves us a bit of time, so we can all go to lunch early. Anyway, it's for us, the astaxanthin is just a really important product that really can make a big change in the industry as a natural product, replacing a chemical one, having a very low footprint, can really make a tremendous change in the industry. Aqua-Bio is actually one of our more recent investments. They use byproducts that can be out of many different food industries, and they use it to grow mycoprotein, so fungi basically. That can then be used to replace soy protein concentrate, which is actually quite exciting because their product was recently tested by the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. And they found that actually the fish not only loved it as a protein, but also the food conversion cycle went down, and it had some improved their immune response. So very exciting, these type of inventions. I think the nice thing about Aqua-Bio is that it's actually taking an old idea that already existed, the protein was already there, and kind of improving it and now bringing it back into production, because the production stopped in the 70s. It was based off the forestry industry. It was no longer needed at some point, and now it has new applications. And we're helping them to investing to build the plants and scale again. So then there's other types of inventions, so to say, not necessarily purely from a research or an academic background, but mainly finding inefficiencies ripe for disruption. We have one of our companies is called eFishery. It's based out of Indonesia. It was actually founded by someone who was a shrimp farmer, or a fish farmer, I should say, sorry, at the time. So he found there were inefficiencies in the systems. One of the things was feed usage. There was a lot of feed wasted during the process, and people just used too much feed because they didn't know exactly when the fish needed to be fed. So he came up with this very simple solution to put a feeder, automatic feeder in that monitored the movement of the fish, pretty much indicating when they were hungry because they would move differently. This actually saved the farmers a lot of money because around 60% of the cost price of producing the fish is actually the feed. So by doing that, he solved an immediate problem, but also reduced a lot of the pollution because there was less feed wasted. What at the time we invested in this company around 2015. What ended up actually happening is because the feeders collected data and the farmers added data to that, that was then collected and allowed the farmers to attract financing based off of that. So not only were they able to use less feed, but they were also able to get financing. Then that platform that formed from there really allowed them to get on and build a bigger marketplace. So what they ended up doing is actually supplying feed ingredients and other inputs through that platform. This company that really started as a small company, as some of you in the room might be today, has now grown out to this company that's valued over $1 billion. So this is a great example that the ideas don't need to be very complicated. They just need to solve a real problem. And I really like Brian's speech on that as well, because I think that's like sometimes it's making something that's relatively simple, but really needed, scalable, and can have a huge impact. So moving on to the second one, great teams. This is one of the most important things we look at when we invest. You can have a great idea, but if you don't have a great team, you're unlikely to succeed. Because one thing that we have learned is that if you have a startup and if you're growing, scaling, wherever you are in a value chain, it's never easy. You're always going to run into hurdles, roadblocks, and you better have a good team, and you also better have fun as a team and work well together as a team, because it's hard enough as it is. So going in, before we invest in a deal, we really like to get to know people, making sure that there's a good connection, but also that there is a real diversity in what people know and can bring to the table. So if you have a scientist, you might want to have a commercial person or a finance person next to it. This all sounds very obvious, but most of the times that we're less successful, there's almost always something also in the team that didn't work. So for us, a really important element when we invest. And the third one, that's about scaling, strategy for scale. Also here, whether you're really building, well, I think there's actually maybe a little bit two different types of scaling here. First one is if you're really scaling in terms of industrial scaling, building plants. That's one where also our experience is that it always takes longer and it always costs more money. It's one of these things that you know up front, because things change, regulation changes, construction costs change, and it's really important, and investors will look at this, like how resilient is your business plan? Have you thought about different scenarios? Very often people come to us and they say, oh, it will cost this much to scale and build a plant. First of all, scaling from a pilot plant to full-scale commercial plant is never a one-on-one game. There's always things that happen and need to be tweaked. And so having realistic expectations around those and having a good, clear understanding of that is going to be really important if you're looking for investors. It's also, by the way, something a lot of investors can help with to develop these plans. But it's very important part of ability to scale. I think the other one is more around technology. So if you look at technology scaling, that's actually a totally different game. So where we look at there, and that's, for example, with eFishery, but also TAPAC that we recently invested in, we really need and look for people that have local knowledge, because you can have this great application, you have to have this great idea, but if you're not solving a problem for a farmer, if you're not solving a problem for your clients, adoption is going to be low. Even if you think you're solving a problem, we find typically, and that's also actually my experience at Rabobank, so this is not just aquaculture, but that for a lot of farmers, adopting new technology is not very straightforward. So being on the ground, having really the local knowledge, as I shared with you before, Gibran, who founded eFishery, had his own fish ponds. TAPAC the management had experience in shrimp farming, really understanding the problem, and also be realistic about it in the sense that what Gibran once told me is like we didn't go out there and had all these problems that we all wanted to fix in one go. We saw them, we solved them one by one. So this is really about, yes, about technology, but more so about the people you're making the technology for. So that on scaling. So then we move to the last two ones, which I really believe is what makes us unique. That's our portfolio of companies. So we really develop them as an ecosystem. And we have this thing that we call shared value manifesto. What that means is that whenever we invest in a company, I see Heidi nod, we ask them to sign up to our shared values. This is a statement that we all are on the same lines in terms of our mission, in terms of what we want to achieve and where we want to go to, in terms of our outcomes. So not all companies will contribute to all 10, 11 outcomes, but they all will to at least one of them, and most of them more than one of them. They also promise to support each other. We have most favored nation clause in there, which effectively means that our portfolio companies can offer the best price to each other that they would offer to their best customers. So really creating this support system. This not only on within the value chain, but also sharing stories about, for example, fundraise or HR or other. A lot of companies, even though they're in different stages or different parts of the value chain, face the same issues. So we really try to create this ecosystem of companies that support each other, and also add to that the network that we have and help them with that network also, for example, to get access to suppliers or retail, just depending on where in the value chain they operate. So then the last one, it's an interesting one. Market and industry adoptions, I've called it. This is a little bit a demand and a supply side, in a sense that this is really also where our advocacy work comes in. What we see is that there's still, on the demand side, a lot of misconceptions about aquaculture. We need to really make sure we change the narrative around it. There's so many great things happening now. There's so many good stories about sustainable production, but we need to get them out there. There's still too many people that are hesitant to invest in or even to buy seafood because they just don't know anymore what's good, what's bad, and what you can and shouldn't do. So with a more conscious consumer, it's going to be even more important to get the story out there. And Robin was telling us about shrimp and rebranding, but I think for the whole industry, it's going to be really important that we get the story out there, and also get the mainstream media to tell the story about how aquaculture can actually be this amazing, low footprint, healthy protein. Traceability. That's also a really big thing. So we work a lot with the retailers to make sure that they understand that it's not only important for them to know where their seafood is coming from, but that also they have a role in educating the consumer. It's really the only protein where we don't have this level of traceability. Then there's the supply side of things. What we see on the supply side is that still a lot of the alternatives are simply too expensive. So there's a solution there is scaling. So when we scale production, obviously we do that hopefully to get the cost down. Because what we found is that consumers typically are not willing to pay more. Sometimes they do if you have a nice story, if it is niche. Some markets, not in all. So it's really about making sure that we get the alternatives out there and make them scalable and affordable. In addition to that, there's also a role for policymakers, making sure that unsustainable aquaculture is no longer no longer possible. That would be in an ideal world, but that we have our conservation areas, that we have rules, and that we have guidelines around what is sustainable farming. Also, the cost of pollution and the cost of a high footprint would need to be priced in, because now, again, getting fish meal from the ocean is still cost advantageous to do. So this is really about the advocacy work that we do, and this is also something, again, that we do together with the industry, that we do together with universities, that we do together with our experts, because this is obviously a big task, but it's really around changing the narrative here. So that already brings me to the end. I think it went quite quick, or not? Yeah, very good. Sorry about that. Well, anyway, I still have my conclusions, so you're not out for lunch yet. No, just to alleviate the pressure of our of oceans and really produce sufficient, sustainable, and healthy seafood, we need to drastically change our food system. We need more scalable ideas, more audacious founders with great teams who can lead who can lead this change of this wonderful, perfect food system together with us. We need more industry experts who can help us, and we need more ideas and make connections between the policymakers, the commercial side, and we need the media to help us to really get the story out there how wonderful and good aquacultural production can be. This is a real transformational moment. It's not only the oceans that urgently need us, but it's also a moment where there's so much attention for it. So we really feel positive that we can make that change, and we have to make that change, and really get it into the hearts and minds of people how important it is to make that change now. Again, if any of you here wants to help us become part of our ecosystem in any way, whether you're an expert or whether you're a startup or someone with a great idea, let me know, come to me, well, let's go on this journey together. We're very positive about the future. Thank you so much.